Hi there, everyone. This is Ira, and you are listening to Los Angeles. No, that's not true. You're not listening to Los Angeles. You're listening just to me. So what I'm going to do right now is open up the syllabus on BB Learn, and I'm going to basically run through the whole syllabus start to finish. And our aim here is to, well, my aim here is to walk through the syllabus in a way that I hope will, at this point, clarify more about what the class is doing now that you have a sense of it for yourself practically than it would have if I'd started off by running through it all right up front. At the same time, I'm hopeful that my way of talking about it will be more useful because I have a little more of a sense of who you are on the basis of reading your thoughtful, careful responses in the discussion posts, as well as now having read and graded your first assignments. And I just want to note before I get into the syllabus, I'm really enjoying watching you think and thinking alongside you so far. I'll be next week, probably at the end of the week, uploading another video of myself that's a sort of a brief lecture-ish. We'll see exactly what that looks like, but if you have anything in particular that you want me to talk about in that, probably be a 20-30 minute video, definitely send me an email and let me know. Also, as always, if you'd like to talk with me by telephone or Skype, I prefer Skype, but I can do telephone if you have internet access difficulties for any reason. So if you'd like to talk with me via Skype or telephone or WhatsApp, I'm always happy to make an appointment to do that. So without further ado, here we go. Now that we're in week 3, it's time to work through the syllabus together. So, as you know, this class is Negotiating Digital Media, and it's a course in the Rhetoric, Writing, and Digital Media Studies master's program, and we have some students who are taking it from outside of the master's program, but most of you are in RWDMS. I think all of you are at least doing a certificate, and that's awesome. So I just want to highlight what I literally just said. I'm available for appointments, either online or face-to-face. If you're in Flagstaff or you're going to be in Flagstaff and you want to meet in my office or at a coffee shop, say the word, and we'll find a time. Also, really, for any questions about your work in the course, we will arrange a time to meet online or face-to-face. So get in touch, and I'm happy to meet with you. Negotiating digital media as a special topic for English 626 offers students an introduction to the rhetorical study of digital media. Students will use the idea that rhetoric studies, quote, the negotiation of constraint as a lens in analyzing and then themselves creating purpose-built digital artifacts. Ultimately, students will leave the course better able to negotiate the constraints of digital media and better positioned to help others learn to do so as well. And so this starts to get to the final project for the course, which is the digital artifact that you're going to be creating, where that digital artifact is something that you hope will help other people become better constraint negotiators in some way. Maybe better at negotiating the constraints of the digital. So it's like super meta. It's a digital artifact that helps people better negotiate the constraints of digital artifacts. Or maybe some other aspect of the world that you want to reach people via a digital artifact. In either event, you're negotiating the affordances and constraints of the digital world in order to help others better negotiate constraints. So that's where we're going ultimately. In order to get there, and I talked about this in my opening video, we are moving through these 3 major phases. So right now we're in theorizing. We're coming into week 3 of theorizing right now, And we're looking, and I know it's a little depressing. I've been watching your discussion posts about this so far, and it is depressing. There's a lot of things about the world right now that are very difficult. And thinking about the ways in which ubiquitous computing shapes or democratic possibilities is difficult. There's a lot of constraints there. There's a lot of things that are hard to look at closely. I think there's also room for hope, and regardless of whether there's good grounds for it, it's always the best bet, because why would you bet against yourself? But it's difficult. So we're in week 3 of theorizing. We'll move through another week of that, and then into investigating in weeks 5 and 6. And really, that's where you're going to be reading first Aristotle and then Gorgias. And so that's going to be reading Aristotle's Rhetoric, which you'll read in full. I encourage you to start now. If you have any spare time, now's a good time to start reading Aristotle. That's going to be a heavy reading week. The difficulties of this week with Kathy O'Neill in particular, and to a lesser extent, I think Robert Hassan, will be showing up again next week. We're really trying to understand the constraints of the digital world, but not in order to just stop there. Rather, in order, as many of you said in talking about studying, in order to then be able to do something with them, to negotiate those constraints. So I want to ask you to keep in mind all throughout, even the difficult stuff, our ultimate goal is to better negotiate constraints. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this together. So, with that in mind, you'll be reading, again, Aristotle and Gorgias in weeks 5 and 6, and using one or the other or both of them to help you write your major essay. The major essay that you write, in a way, is going to prepare you for the final project assignment. So the major essay is going to be a careful rhetorical analysis of a digital artifact. You may follow the template of the essay that you just wrote a summary and critique of, i.e. you may, write an essay that obviously is your own ideas and your own digital artifact and your own lens, but follows a similar pattern. Or you may not like the pattern of the essay you just read that much, or you may just want to do something different, and so you may be following a different pattern. I don't have up on BB Learn an assignment sheet for that yet, and that's intentional. I will have one up soon, but I'm going to write that assignment sheet in part on the basis of what you all determine you're going to count as digital artifacts. So, to recall, and we'll come through this again, to recall that major essay that you're going to do in week 6 is going to be the rhetorical analysis of a digital artifact. And then again in week 7 and 7.5, that's where you're going up and making a purpose-built digital artifact. All right, so I'm going to kind of move quickly through a lot of this. I just want to sort of give more of an overview of it than really read through it all. But I do want to note, here's a little bit more info about that major essay, okay, and the final project. For your major essay, you will draw on at least one classical source. That's going to be Aristotle, or it's going to be Gorgias, or it's going to be both. You'll draw on at least one classical source to examine how the digital artifact you have chosen to study, and that's the artifact that you're choosing this week, how the artifact you have chosen to study constrains users and how users may negotiate its constraints. You will think carefully along the way toward that major essay about how digital artifacts fit into larger environments, and that's a lot of the reading for this week and next week. In the final project, you will use lessons learned from this rhetorical analysis in creating your own purpose-built digital artifact, aiming to help others better negotiate some constraints in a way that seems important are valuable to you. Now I'm going to skip through the general course catalog and the course learning outcomes, not because they're unimportant. They're not at all unimportant. They're non-trivial, and I hope that you will read through them and think about them and talk with me about them in an appointment if you have any questions, or you want to talk more about how the different things that we're doing help you pursue and achieve those learning outcomes. But I'm not going to read them out loud in this short recording. So here's the sort of schedule. The scope of assignments. We've done week 1. That was just discussion. We've done week 2. That was a writing assignment, the first one, and a discussion. We're into week 3 now. That's a new writing assignment, and this is the selection of the digital artifact that you think you'll examine, as well as a brief summary of it, and a brief discussion. Next week in 4, you're going to begin analyzing your digital artifact in a more serious way. You're also going to talk a little bit about digitality and reality. Then in week 5, you're going to be working out a kind of an Aristotelian lens. You're going to be starting to think really carefully about Aristotle on rhetoric and developing a thoughtful read of some part of Aristotle, not the whole. I mean, you'll read all of the rhetoric, but you'll be writing up a reading of some part of it, and the discussion should help in that process as well. Then in week 6, your major essay will be due. That'll be your rhetorical analysis of a digital artifact. And we'll also have a little bit of a lighter discussion, which is really just thinking about how Aristotle and Gorgias would differ in how they would think about digital artifacts. Then week 7 is largely devoted to prep work for building your digital artifact. So you'll write in an assignment, you'll articulate the purpose, the audience, and a design approach. And we'll talk in more general terms on the basis of the readings for that week about how digital artifacts exceed and or fail to achieve their maker's purposes. Finally, in week 7.5, you will produce your purpose-built digital artifact, and you'll perform a self-evaluation of how well that digital artifact that you have made negotiates its constraints. And that self-evaluation will be, public. Not public to the general public, but public within our course, because I think it's really important. That's very low stakes, and I'll talk about it more when it comes time, but that's low stakes in the sense that whether you succeed in your aims or not is much less important than that you have a well-developed plan for succeeding in those aims and a thoughtful evaluation of what you produced. You're going to spend the rest of your life practicing different strategies for negotiating digital media. Part of what you leave this course with, and part of what that final self-evaluation is about, is leaving with a sense of what do you know right now, how well are you able to do what you'd like to do, what do you want to learn next, etc. We'll talk more about it at the time. So we're just going to scroll down a bunch. This is the syllabus. It's all in there. I do want to, so I'm not going to go through on a week-by-week basis the readings. Those are all up on BB Learn, as you know. I do want to call out, I had a question about what actual day the final project is due. It says Friday, October 19th in the syllabus, but in fact, if you look at October, you will see, that I already corrected it. Sorry about that. In the original syllabus, it said 18th. And so there was a question, is it the 18th or the 19th? It is the 19th. The final project is due on Friday, October 19th. Okay. Sorry about that. And, then there are a set of course policies that you'll probably be pretty familiar with already. So that's the walkthrough of the syllabus. I want to come back to this week that we're in, which is week 3, and um, I know that this choice of what digital artifact to study is probably a little stressful for a lot of people. If you haven't yet, I encourage you to read back through last week's discussion. A lot of people said a lot of really smart and interesting things about what digital artifacts are. And so thinking about those things should kind of get you in the frame of mind to think about what you might want to study. And then I want to encourage you to go a step further and think, well, why do we study things? Well, you yourself just wrote about that a minute ago and engaged with other people in the class, with your colleagues, about the smart and interesting things they wrote. So think about why you would want to study a digital artifact, what you might hope for, and use that thinking and use the thinking about what digital artifacts are to help kind of guide you towards choosing a digital artifact to study rhetorically. And then also, as you're thinking about what we want from digital media, I want to encourage you to think with an attitude of, how would you like to help other people, this is for the final project, negotiate constraints? Maybe choose a digital artifact that sets you up to go down that road eventually. As we've discussed, digital artifacts can be all kinds of things, mostly some piece of world that is encoded in ones and zeros is the simplest. That was the definition that we got from the first reading, from the first week that you read alongside excerpts from my book. But I want to, I have deliberately not narrowed down the set of things that you could choose to study, because I think what you choose to study as a digital artifact here is going to, and should, reflect your sense of what's important for you to learn more about at this juncture. What's important for you to study rhetorically? What are the things that or what is a thing, what is a digital artifact right now that would be an interesting and useful site of rhetorical study for you? I also want to note this week is due on Wednesday, and I'm decided I'm going to push the writing assignment back to Friday. So do finish the discussion for this week by Wednesday, please. But why don't you take a couple extra days and finish the preliminary analysis and detailed summary of your chosen digital artifact for Friday. Also, as you can tell, those of you in Southeast Asia and elsewhere, I keep fairly late hours, so it is not absurd to suggest some late night hours. I usually work through the night. I won't be able, really, generally speaking, to do appointments in the mornings for obvious reasons. But right now here in Arizona, it's 3:45 in the morning. But anyways, all of which is to say, I encourage you, if you have any interest at all, send me an email and make an appointment, or suggest some times that you'd like an appointment. And we'll find some time this week as you're preparing to write that detailed summary and preliminary analysis of the digital artifact that you're choosing. If you want, talk with me and in an appointment, and we'll talk about what you might choose and why. I'm very happy to do that. All right, so that's the general scope of things right now. This has gone on for almost 20 minutes, this recording, and I think that's probably plenty long. I look forward to continuing to read you all. I'm really enjoying some of the inventive and really thoughtful ways that you're engaging with the assignments and discussions both so far. And so I look forward to continuing to work together. Thanks a lot.